You got a problem? You got a problem? You come to me. We work it out. I see that little smile in there. You've got attitude of anybody I know.
Well, right now, as soon as we can get everybody seated, we can start this critique.
Right.
I got it. There you go. No, it's the hairspray. I figured that was going to be good. I think I did that thing. My head is smaller. I did get it first.
I know, can you speak in Cuban one time? I don't know about this.
Was it 50-50? You mean? Wasn't the beginning of everything?
I do people from my
Mike, you start smoking. All of that, who was blaming for it, came to the idea that all of that, though it exists, it is something to be concerned with, is not something that should kill us. So it's in the periphery. But if you were to take each poem in and of itself, each poem has a meaning to it.
I guess when I had urged you to look for a staging syntax, it was in hope of leading to a connection to the word and to the through line. It's the first time I saw it. I had an awful lot of difficulty, one, indulging you, as I told you, because it's a lot of the same similar spewing, angry, self-denial, self-abasement kinds of values for so long. And I was afraid that without some sort of a dramatic context, of staging context, that I wouldn't be able to pull it all together, piece to piece, scene to scene, point to point. When did you hit on the idea, or had you had it all along, to use the puppet strings?
I can tell you where the whole idea, I can kind of tell you the whole idea of what this came from. It came from you, whether you know it or not. There was a time I sat in Dr. Rucker's office and had shown him examples of my poetry. He read them. And he said, Michael, each poem seems to have its own emotional viewpoint, even almost a character viewpoint. And you might be able to use these as audition pieces. Do you remember that discussion?
Yeah.
And then later I was thinking, you know, one day I'm going to have to do a recital. I was under the impression that I did. And I thought, aha! So I came up and I digged all these poems up, I dug all these poems up from everywhere, and put Zero the Clown in white, with no eye makeup, to make him just a formless, shapeless, just the form of a human being with no details. So kind of like just there. I thought marionette strings from the very beginning would help to show that Zero was either in captivity or in imagined captivity. That was a device from the beginning. Although I must give credit where credit is due. This cross bracing that I have hung on here on the rafters turns with me, and the idea for the elastic waistband, which came from Renee, and Travis and Renee both idealized and worked on the cross beam. So, and before I continue about that, I have to tell you that without my crew, without Travis and Chris and Bill Strong and Renee and Becky, this thing could never happen. The TV idea, sat here, somebody mentioned TVs, and suddenly we had this idea, ooh, this and this and this, and just everything just evolved from there. The setting, the chalkboard, the glow tape, everything. So this is not just my idea. The words are mine and the acting, but the rest was all of us. I have a question for everybody then. Dr. Rucker had mentioned to me, we discussed about the idea of dramatic action. Usually you have two people on the stage going na 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 na, and from them is created dramatic action. But I didn't have the luxury of another person. So the dramatic action, I was hoping, would appear that the battle, that there is to be a battle, was Zero against himself. And I asked you, did that come through? You know?
Sure.
Most definitely.
You even had external antagonists at times that you couldn't see.
We represented society, and you were against society's norms also. Because you're about to step off the left, I'll show you that picture now.
My body motions were brought in.
Brought it in, brought it in.
Brought it.
You were talking to you.
Cindy Totten's a teacher for mom. She sent me down to her office, and I was thinking, and I had mentioned the idea of employing Commedia dell'arte for the show, and she had me watch a videotape of The Taming of the Shrew, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, I think the American Shakespeare Conservatory, something like that. There's a scene
in San Francisco, American Conservatory Theater.
What he said. There was a scene between Kate and Petruchio where I swear to God, Kate was thrown around all over the place, and Petruchio, she was literally entwining around his body. The motions were so outward, similar to those that you could have seen in Comedy Veras. Had you seen that? If you'd seen that. And that, I felt that if I used Commedia dell'arte, I could make this more absurd. And by making it more absurd, make it more realistic to all of you. If that makes any sense at all.
Mike, there's two kind of critiques that are really hard to give. One is when it's really awful and you don't want to destroy someone. The other one is when the performance is extremely excellent and you know you're not going to do them a whole lot of good just by saying that was fabulous. I did think it was fabulous. I was one of the first people, I think, to read this, and I was very moved by what I read. And I think one of the first things we ever talked about in a faculty meeting was that I thought the potential for greatness was there, but I worried about its dramatic possibilities. You remember that? Yeah. And you satisfactorily answered the question where I thought you would have some dramatic possibilities. And you did. I think the antagonism between the two elements of yourself came forth and carried that through. I hope that some of the excellence was due to what we taught you. I haven't been here long enough to know what you came with and what you learned. The vocal work and the staging was something maybe you could have learned from us. I don't think we could have taught you the ideas, and it's so refreshing to find articulate young people these days.
And with a passion. I don't know, the older I get, the harder it is to find passion, and I relish it when I find it. And I think from the beginning it was the passion that you displayed early on in your presentation to the faculty that more or less got us in support of it. It's so refreshing to have somebody that cares a great deal about the work, and therein lies the greatest joy and the greatest striving for superiority. We knew you were going to come up with something. Just because you were so incredibly passionate about it, the exact look and feel we weren't sure about, but we knew it would probably be entertaining because you cared so much about it.
Yeah, that's what came through to me, your passion and your dedication to it. That's what I saw the whole time.
Well, Gary, you brought up the idea of where the knowledge came from. Well, I can't take credit for all the knowledge. No, when I got here from high school, I really didn't know jack about theater. I didn't know about... I hung a couple lights, Phil, you'd be proud. I hung those 2 lights up there. I even dressed a few cables. I freaked myself out.
Phil would be very proud.
And I knew nothing about that before I came here. I knew nothing about set design or lighting design or most of the things I know about acting or costuming or anything. So I did indeed employ that knowledge. But I think perhaps another thing that college did, and I think something college does for all of us, is it gives us a perspective that is free from all kinds of influences. We're not even aware of some of the influences that we're free from right now that gives us the possibility of seeing the world in a very open light. Someone talks about when we're in our history classes and a history teacher brings relevance in terms of history to things that are happening now, we can look out into the world. We have our own little world here. We can look out and see what it is out there and face it when we leave. And it is that knowledge that I had all this experience. I didn't know what to do with it. And I came here and had all this knowledge. Finally, I don't know how or where, I think I learned how to really put it down on paper and make something, make heads or tails of it. And the reason that I did Zero the Clown, did this, I didn't have to do a recital. I don't know if you guys know that. I'm not BFA, so that I don't have to. As I believe what makes literature great, or theater great, or anything like that, is that it is a sharing of experience. 2 human beings can watch one sunset. They'll see the same thing, but they won't experience it the same way. However, if somebody writes a poem about that sunset, explains it, and somebody reads it, they can come closer to sharing that experience. I felt that some of the knowledge, that this knowledge I had gained, was so important. Not just to me. Maybe I thought somebody could gain from it. So I organized it, and I did it. And I hope that it has been a little more than simply entertaining. Mark Holloway, I don't know if he's here now, said something that was just what I wanted to hear.
You couldn't handle what you guys know.
You couldn't handle it 2 nights in a row. But he said, as he walked out, he felt as if I had cut his strings for him. I can't tell you how good that makes me feel.
Mike, in watching this and knowing that you would want feedback, you know, I haven't looked for something to tell you more than it was great. I think, of course, in this situation, you're directing yourself. And there's one thing that directors have, I think, more often than actors have, good ones, and that's a strong feeling for pacing. If I were to look for something that might improve this, I might just have you think about this. That you understood the build of intensity and you graded that up to a climax, just like a well-made play, really. But you might also consider some of the possibilities of the fullness of thought that can exist within a pause or within a breath. I thought there were times you could have benefited from, maybe this kind of stems from what Steve said, you could have benefited from a moment when a silence could have counted for more. If we just have to wait just a moment for that next word, we might latch onto it just a little bit more. And there were some words I would have liked for the whole group to have latched onto, or a thought or a phrase that could have had a little more emphasis with a little more consideration for that kind of pacing, like writing a symphony. You can't play them all fast. There's usually an adagio movement and so forth.
I think, to be honest, that stems from my fear of it being too long. I sat in that thing for a half hour. And as I sat there like this for a half an hour, it was just, my heart was just pounding in my chest. And it was like when I finally got out there, I was just ready to burst into it. I couldn't find myself. It was very difficult to slow down at points. So I think that might have a lot to do with it. I think your criticism is extremely valid. And I don't know, if I had done that and I had made it longer, would that have made it too long?
It wouldn't have been any longer. If you would have added 10 moments like that of 1 second apiece, you've added 10 seconds to the performance.
That's acceptable. Well, I didn't care. I just didn't want anyone going, oh, God, this is a turd. I'm leaving.
It also led to something else. Of all the ways I've seen you did something that I'd never seen you do before, and that was trip over words. Part of that might be the fact that the words were coming out so fast and furious. The other part, I think, might be the fact that you knew these words better than any of the lines you've ever known before, because you told me once that you would learn lines backwards for a play.
Oh, you only know too well.
But this one, seeing as these were words that you wrote yourself, you knew them as well forwards and backwards, so I think that's something you might want to analyze, find a new technique for getting the words down so you don't trip over them.
You hardly ever trip on it.
That's a weird thought. That was a new knowledge that came to me. I can memorize Shakespeare lickety-split, and I can do it as close to verbatim as I can get, and it does not seem to be a problem. The author I should be able to do the most justice to is myself, but I was so concerned about doing justice to myself that I just flubbed a few parts. And that was really extremely bizarre.
Like, very few. You really did fine. The other thing you did real well is the vocal tones. I mean, just switching from voice to voice. You did that perfect.
Never heard me sing before, did you, Tim?
You know, you actually hit some actually vocal tones. I never thought you would do, even in fights, I'd never even heard you hit some tones. You actually almost sound like a man there.
Jealous?
No, you really did. You did some things that surprised me. Good job, Mike.
I watched you through the years, so I guess probably longer than anybody's seen.
22 years?
So, yeah, we won't sit on it. And you've always done very well with written word given to you, and doing the very best to try to bring out what that particular person was writing.
don't get writers who write their stuff and really get out there and do it. And I think that you tripped over a few words doesn't seem to bother me. I think what has happened here is that your own words are challenging you.
Athlete words.
That's what I thought was, as Zero the Clown, and watching you perform as an actor. I thought, it can't get much better. But I also noticed there was so much Mike in this. And I said to someone outside, he had this character of Zero the Clown, but it was also Mike in it. I saw so much Mike. And I thought that was so amazing that you brought them together.
I was telling,
Brought it up to us.
somebody had a question over there, a comment, and I keep hearing raise your hand.
It's me, Mike.
Come on out with it already, are you?
Okay, something that you and I talked about was that you hoped that anything that you had to say that was important, that if you could say anything that would help people to understand things or to actually do something about their lives, or be able to think differently about certain subjects, like to be able to help the earth or to do this or to do that. I think that really worked tonight. Everybody that was in this room tonight, you made them think. You really made them think, and they're going to go away from here, and the next time they come across anything that is remotely what you said, they're going to stop and say, yeah, wait a minute, and then they might think differently about how they do things, or their actions or anything like that. And I think that was very effective.
That's because you put us in those strings, not with you.
I hope so, and I tried, that was my undercurrent, and I think I put the icing on that cake by stepping in red light and becoming Satan. I love doing that part, by the way. Yeah, I called my mother and said, "Oh, Mom, I say some things about Mommy and Daddy. I thought I might prepare you for it."
Oh, well. One thing that helped me understand it was that you weren't just saying it. That this is how you live. That you live with these beliefs, and I can see them in you every day. Unlike many Christians I've seen, unlike anybody I've ever seen, you have gone through and decided what you believe, and you live by it. And I commend you for it.
I can only quote Jobers the volcano and say, I have no response to that. So, gosh, thanks. Here's another lesson therein that Zero the Clown has taught me as a piece. Working with my own words, knowing how I need to get those words out. I have to think next time when I'm using somebody else's words and memorizing somebody else's words and performing them, that individual had a need to get those words out, whatever that need may be, and that it will help me to perform a character much better using my love for language and trying to recognize what need the author of a certain thing might have had to write it. That will benefit me greatly.
I have a question on you. Has this work changed you?
This is the affirmation and the very confirmation of everything I am and everything I've ever known. This is, to me, a barrier that I had to breach before I could go on with bigger and better things. It was as much for me as it was for all of you. It was, as Zero looked in that mirror, I looked in the mirror. As Zero cut the strings, I cut the strings. And it has been psychologically both stressful for me getting this done, but it's almost as if it were an absolution, a self-absolution, a forgiveness of self. For years, I felt I was too skitty. I never liked looking at my face in the mirror. I had all these horrible things I thought of myself. It was that self-loathing, like in the poem Hating Myself. And that is this close to gone. And so therefore, this Zero the Clown has helped me to recognize, realize, and affirm to myself everything that I want to become. So it's kind of like, as you say, Zero, you could see a lot of Mike in him. True enough, I couldn't get Mike out of it if I wanted to. They're my words. I wrote them because of my experiences. It was me acting. On the other hand, I think that Mike Dolce is, because of this, almost, if not already, a chapter in my past. A step in the development of myself as a performer, as a writer, and as a human being. Yeah.
Well, good. Now you can go to graduate school and get on with it.
Yeah, totally. You want me to go to graduate